Hey, Terry from Hot Wrench Fabrication. Welcome to another episode. Kind of blew this one. I started working on this particular project without starting to film the before and after. I got so excited, just started tearing it apart. But I think you guys are going to enjoy this one. This is kind of a new deal for me. But this is what we're doing in the Hot Wrench Fabrication shop. Oh yeah, 55 Chevy, American Classic. Doing a back half on this car. You see I got the rear end out. This thing has a 383 with a 5-speed in it. Pulling that motor out and putting a LS2 twin turbo with an automatic in it. And these were the old tires on the back, which were actually pretty good size, and then these are the new tires that need to fit under there. Gonna narrow a Ford 9-inch, so I'm actually making my own jig for that. I'll show you guys how to do that. But yeah, I got a little excited and ripped all this out without showing the before and after. I do have a picture that I will show you guys of what the car looked like. But just getting started. Pulled this guy out. This is I don't even know what this is, late model. It's not the one that was in there, but this is a late model Chevy rear end. And leaf spring, kind of a basic setup, but I'm gonna back half it, cut the frame, cut all this out, cut the floor out, which I'm gonna start today. I put this little cross member in here already, so frame's actually gonna get cut right here. And I gotta figure out exactly where, but somewhere up here. Another cross member, and then gets filled in. So all the whole entire trunk, everything needs to vacate. Putting in a 4-link system. So it's the 4-link that the customer had bought for it. And it's getting a wishbone kit. So 4-link with a wishbone. That's where all these tubes and stuff are over here. So it should be pretty cool. Got the little motorcycle done for that another customer. He's picking this up today. So yeah, been busy. Hot Wrench Fabrication. So this will be a fun build. Obviously it's going to be a multi-part, but I'm going to get all this cut out and post this pretty soon, show you guys what I'm doing. All right, pretty good day. 55 Chevy back half. Got the frame cut out. Some little reinforcements welded in there to kind of keep things from moving. Starting to work on getting the floor trimmed out. Not exactly sure how far we want to go. Got this lip right here. We can either cut it on top of the lip, put the new floor on top, or eliminate that lip and just go right on here, which is a nice flat surface. So probably gonna do that, but we'll see. We gotta finish trimming all this out. This is the wheel well here. I think what we're gonna do is just cut it down here and then move it in and then fill it in with a filler piece, and that'll make our basically our mini tubs. It's pretty shoddy work. This is previous repair. People just not having a clue what they're doing. Just slapping crap on top of crap, and then they covered it all up with a nice little piece and called it a day. I mean, just horrible. This is where the shocks went up in there, but they didn't end up using those. They made a new shock brace because the floor was just so rotted away. I'm like, it's just terrible. I don't understand people. If you don't know how to fix a car, then you shouldn't be fixing a car, because that's scary. But we got the interior, or the seats out anyway. Got to start pulling the side panels so I can finish cutting the floor out and cut the tubs out. And then let's clean things up, and then that's about it for demo. But see, the frame is out. We do have a little sub piece put in there. It's kind of hard to see. Nuts are just kind of tacked in. Gotta figure out where everything's going. But yeah, nice little pile O stuff. That's the frame rails. And that's the rear end I'm using. I gotta finish the jig for that so I can shorten that up. Yeah, good stuff. Having a blast. I will keep moving on. Okay, so getting ready to cut this axle housing down. Narrowing this 9-inch. So what I did was I just measured from inner fender well to inner fender well, which is 73 inches. I want about 1.5 inch gap on each side because this kind of tapers in a little bit. So I figured 1.5 inches will be enough to get me all the way up there without rubbing. So 1.5 inches on each side is obviously 3 inches total, which is 70 inches. So I set these exactly 70 inches apart. Measured my flange to flange, and that came up with 43 inches right there. 43 inches. It was 65 inches outside to outside. So this needs to be 12 inches shorter. So if I cut out 6 inches in each tube, should be good to go. So I started making my jig. I turned some pucks on the lathe. Just took some scrap aluminum that I had, 1.5 inches on the inside, and spun them up to fit in there and chopped them down. So that's absolutely positively straight. And then once I get the ends cut off, I can get these races pounded out of there. I'm gonna cut it off here and then take a bearing chisel and pound those out from the inside, and then I can measure that and make some pucks for the outside. So once it's all cut apart, I can slide that rod through there and it's going to be absolutely 100% straight. So that's what's next. Chopping some axles apart. All right, cut the ends off. Just measured in 5 inches and whacked these off. Put them in here. Obviously it's going to cut pretty straight. Had it all set up right on the money. I've seen people, you know, put tape around there and mark it all nice and straight and then scribe a line and then cut it and do this, do that. I mean, which is all great, but you know, if you just chuck it in your chop saw, which most people have, it actually cuts it pretty good. Also seen a lot of people draw a diagonal line across there so that you make sure all this stuff ends up in the same spot. Also, I've seen people measure off of the top of the rear end housing with the level and then measure the ears on here with the level and get it all. I mean, all that stuff's great, but it's really not necessary. There's a natural part, the seam in here where it got welded. See this bump right here? That bump's gonna match up with the bump inside here. So that's on all axle tubes. So I'm gonna clean all this up, bevel the outside, and scrub all that crap out of the inside there. It's still dirty. But I'm just gonna make a little grind mark across there, and then boom, that's how I line it up. Super easy. But now that I have these off, I can get inside there. So there's a little, I don't know, can you see that? Yeah, you can see it, a little lip in there. They make a special race chisel, and I'm gonna go in there and just pop those races out. It's the easiest way to do it. Then I can measure for my pucks and then clean all this off, bevel the edges, stick my bar through there, bada bing, bada boom, it'll be perfect. But I do need to cut 6 inches off of here. But yeah, the chop saw works pretty good. All right, so I got this all chucked up in the lathe, the end to the axle housing. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of these kind of hokey homemade jigs and levels and squares and stuff doesn't work when you're trying to get these straight. Look at how off
far off the housing is. I don't know if we can pick up on that, but it's going up and down like crazy, at least 1/8 of an inch. So these housings are anything but square, and if you're trying to square it up off the housing, it's just not going to work. So I did square up the end. The end part is at least flat now, and I'm going to bevel this with a grinder, but it's chucked up right on the bearing surface itself. So the bearing part's straight and the housing is just, it's everywhere. So all these homemade remedies about clamping it on the outside and using a level, using a square, that just doesn't work. You have to do it internally, and you have to build or buy, you know, some pretty accurate pucks to be able to put all this together. So this is exactly 1.5 inches on the inside, which goes with my bar stock over here. So this piece here is exactly 1.5 inches. So those fit nice and snug on the end there. Nice and snug on here. So I'm making 4 of these, and once I slide everything together with the new housing, and it's gonna fit good. It's gonna be square and it's gonna be nice. So that's where we're at. I got one more of these to make. This had a little burr on it, so I gotta knock that off, but these fit perfectly inside there. And then slide this back over the housing with all this bar and all this jig stuff together, and GTG, baby, good to go. Alright, well, I figured I better show you this because it's actually working out pretty good. So I'm just using my angle grinder, just letting it follow how it's going up and down. About a 45-degree angle. Obviously you can see the lasers on pretty slow speed. Nice little chamfer. I'll go down pretty much all the way to the end. I'm going to leave a little bit of flat spot on there to butt up against the housing. This is working pretty good. Alright, so we got a little tack, a little mock-up. This one looks weird because it's right next to this housing. These housings are just kind of a mess, but well, don't fall. See, the bar still turns, and all these are nice and loose. They're not binding, so that means that everything is absolutely straight. Even though it looks crooked, I'm okay with that because this bar doesn't lie. It's going through the center section. As you can see, I do have a makeshift gasket in there. So the pinion is sitting, or the third member is sitting where it's supposed to. And this side actually lines up a little better. But yeah, it's good. So the little notch trick, you see that up there? Those notches, that's all I had to do is line up the seams, line up the notches, and everything is notches on this side. We're down here. So by the time you get everything taken back off, these little ears should line up, which I can kind of see by, you can't see because that's in the way, but it looks pretty close. So all you gotta do is keep tacking and burning it in nice and slow, let it cool down so it doesn't move around, and make sure this bar still moves. Should be in good shape. Alright, so I got the rear end kind of mocked up and set up to where I want it. I'm using a laser just to kind of sight everything down, which is kind of cool. So the laser is smack dab right in the middle of this edge right here. This seems to be a good reference point to the middle of the car, and then
that hole right there, pretty close to the center of that, goes right in the middle of the oil pan. And then, I don't know if the camera's picking this up, but it's pretty much right there on the plumb bob. So it's all super close. And then this is just mock-up, of course, but like it's 2 inches away from the string here, hanging off the side of the frame, and it's pretty much exactly 2 inches away from this side too. So that's where the rear end's gonna go. She's nice and straight. I like it. But of course this is all gonna move. It's just mock-up, like I said. So the next thing to do is to continue to tack weld and get this thing made up. I'm still have to make a truss for the back of this. Little truss system on there to hold that. And then the frame's pretty much going to go right here where this line's at. That'll be where the subframe's going to get built. Go back into here. And of course I'll cut all this off and reinforce it and make it nice. So should be a good day today. Lots to do. So I got my root pass all burned in there. You can see the little valley right there. It's TIG weld. Got a really good penetration on that. Had it cranked up. She got a little hot, but I tacked it quite a bit before I did the finish, or did the complete weld all the way around. And the best part is this still spins, which means that it has to be 100% straight. So I'll go back in and make a couple more passes and smooth all this out, make it nice. Oof. That actually dissipates the heat pretty quick. I just finished welding it not too long ago. So a couple good welds in there. A couple not so good, but it don't matter because it's gonna get ground down and finished. All right, next step is getting these frame rails built. So I got the floor mostly cut out, I think, to where it's a little manageable. I still have to cut the tubs out here. Trying to figure out how to do that because it's all molded together, but just slice that and bring these over. But I want to at least get the subframe built, and I could take off these temporary braces, this one here, going to the back, and then I can cut this ear off and cut this ear off and get rid of those, and then this will be the main frame. But started mocking this up last night. Looks like it's gonna work out pretty good. These are all just tacked on there for now. But the center line of the axle is right there. I don't know if you can see that line. It's all dark in there. But anyway, there's a line right there, basically where this tape is at. So that's the center line where the axle is gonna go. And that lines up pretty close to that right there. And I made it extra high just so we don't have any issues whatsoever. This guy wants to get this axle up in there, the rear end up in there pretty far, so might have been a little too high, but it doesn't matter. It's all just trunk space, and then this will get covered with sheet metal and stuff, so it'll look nice. And then the last piece, oh, stuff is heavy. Last piece right here kind of goes in there ish. It's got to be leveled off, but that's the way that's going to sit. Of course, this will be level, and then the fuel tank will go in this hole where I'm standing right now. So now that all that's mocked up, I cut 2 identical sides. When I cut each one of these pieces, I just cut 2. So this side's going to be taken back apart. It's just tacked. Put it on my fixture table. Although it's a little small, it actually works out pretty good. Everything's all clamped down nice and even and smooth, so I can just go in there, and because the tube has a nice radius on it, it's going to weld up real good. So I just clean the mill scale off, and I'll burn those in, and then all these will get capped, and it'll be nice. So got this fixture table from a buddy of mine. I did some work for him, and he bought this thing. It's worked out pretty good. A little small, like I said, and then I made these little clamps. Bought Harbor Freight, $2.99 a piece, and then I got these shoulder bolts. Get these at a hardware store. This shank right here is exactly 5/8, and it fits perfect in these holes. So I just welded one of those onto the bottom of this, and then with my extra hand, there we go. You literally just slide that into the whatever hole you want, press down, and boom, tighten it up. So it worked out real well. So I'll buzz some good heavy tacks on here while it's in the table, and then flip it over, tighten it back down, buzz the other side, and then I can cook it in. And so that one goes there, but I ran out of clamps. So once that's all welded up, then I can stick it back up in there with some pole jacks and level it all out, make sure it's nice and straight. So that's what's going on next.